Welcome to Streaming with Two Dudes, a podcast about all things streaming. Each week, we break down some of the best series, songs, movies, and shows. I'm one dude, Parker.
I'm the other dude, Jeff.
And dudes, this month our theme is two dudes. Where's my car? This is basically just like a month of celebrating cars. We have the new Fast and Furious, and I think it might be the penultimate, if not the last one, of the Fast and the Furious series, which which in honor of that, we decided to do Car Month. And since we're doing it in honor of Fast and the Furious 10, I decided to do the first Fast and the Furious movie that is available on streaming, which happens to be Furious 7.
Despite my pleas and begging Parker to let us do the entire month of just Herbie the Love Bug movies, but
dude,
there is like 4 or 5 of them, so it might have been perfect.
I don't even know if I've actually seen one of those, honestly.
I remember them as a kid, because obviously I think that franchise started in the 70s.
Yeah,
and I think they did like a recent one. I mean, a recent meaning like the last maybe 10 years, because Lindsay Lohan was in it.
Oh, that would have been it's been longer than 10 years, because
has it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that would have been when I was in high school, because she was still a teenager, and her and I are like, we're not the same age, but we're like close enough that I remember that being like a movie that was around when I was in high school.
Gotcha.
Because that was still before that might have even been before Mean Girls. I don't know.
I know she was fairly young. I think it was like Herbie Fully Loaded or Reloaded or something like that. But
she even had 2 of those, because Fully Loaded and Reloaded both sound right. I don't know. But it's definitely Fully Loaded. Reloaded might have been a sequel to the Fully Loaded. I don't know. I wasn't a big Herbie fan, honestly. I was more of a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang guy myself.
I hear you.
All right, Jeff. What other than Furious 7, what else have you been streaming?
Well, first of all, as some of our listeners might know, we actually took a week off. It was a good week to have off. If you listen to our last podcast, we had Araya and Steen on with us, and man, we laughed so much. We just needed an extra week.
We figured you guys needed an extra week of like decompress, because like that one was so dense and so juicy and good that we knew you guys needed a break, just to recalibrate yourselves. And we didn't want to go from such like great heights to like back to base level just so quickly. We just needed a little bit of an extra week to kind of parachute and like get ourselves back down to earth.
And help with any disappointment you guys might have. It's just me and him again for at least a little while.
There's no other faces in our Zoom call this week.
We do plan on having them back on at some point. So I think we all had a great time. So there's even talk that we might jump on their podcast one week, which will also be fun. So
and not to mention all the other future guests we have lined up. Wink, wink. Jeff, sorry, what else have you been streaming?
So Steph and I did something we hadn't done in a really long time. We just binge watched, I want to say maybe was it last Saturday or maybe the Saturday before. It was funny because it was originally just supposed to be like a rainy Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, oh, this is gonna be the perfect time, because it's probably been a couple of months, but I actually got a TV and put it on our wall in our bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not like huge TV or movie watchers, so it's been a number of years since we've actually had a TV in our bedroom. So but one of the reasons we did it was because I don't know, about 6 months ago we had to get a new bed, so we actually got one that has got the adjustable base, so you recline up, be all comfortable. And
so y'all have moved into a hospital. Okay.
Yeah, hey, getting that age. So, but no, it is, and it was our first time actually, trying out the whole setup, um, and it turns out that it only rained for like an hour that Saturday morning, but we're like, no, what doesn't matter.
You already had it planned, yeah.
Staying in our pajamas. But no, we binge watched Outer Banks season 3.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
there's not a lot of shows that we watch together, but that is one of the ones that we've kind of kept up with
Yeah.
together. And actually, season 3 has been out for a few months. We just hadn't got around to watching it. But little insider tip for those that may not know: Outer Banks is not filmed in Outer Banks whatsoever.
Oh,
uh,
yeah?
it's actually filmed in Charleston, South Carolina. So another reason we like it, because we're kind of familiar with a lot of the
What
scenes and the
what
filming
state is it set
locations.
in?
Oh, I'm sorry, South Carolina.
Oh, it's supposed to be set in South
Oh
Carolina?
no, I'm sorry. Outer Banks is in North Carolina.
Okay, okay.
So like the creators are originally from Wilmington, North Carolina, which is
Mhm.
near the coast. So they love the area, and their intention was to film in the area that the show was based in.
Yeah.
But it was more of a, I don't know, there was some law, I don't know if you remember, that North Carolina passed, actually came out of Charlotte, some kind of transgender bathroom bill
Mhm.
that,
I
that
remember
caused.
all that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there was a lot of, I guess, protests as far as whether it's sporting events, movie filming.
Yeah.
So Netflix decided not to film. So they came south a little bit and
Well, there you
decided to.
go. Hey.
But beautiful scenery though. If you love like the beach looking marsh type thing. But season 3, we really enjoyed it. And we've talked about this some. To me, it's like a number of shows we've watched. There's just a natural digression, I guess, as
Mhm.
far as like season 1 is great, and then it just kind of slowly tails off. So, each season we haven't enjoyed as much as the previous season. It did get renewed for season 4, but I know we've talked about that's why we enjoy Cobra Kai so much, because it's one of the few shows where it felt like, man, it's like it gets a little bit stronger each season.
Mhm.
Um, but so yeah, we that's what we've been streaming. What about
Awesome.
you? You've had 2 weeks. What you done?
So I actually have something new to talk about as well. It might not be new for like everybody because it's actually been out in the world for probably 6 months now.
Love
But
is Blinder.
no, 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 no. Not Love is
That's
Blind. I'm actually getting it off
no,
of
I
that.
said Love is Blinder.
Oh, I
Sequel.
don't. But I finally watched the final season of Better Call Saul this past over the past, I guess, 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever watched Breaking Bad, but if for some strange reason you watch Breaking Bad and you never watch Breaking or Better Call Saul, or you never heard of it or something like that, I definitely recommend going and watching it. All of the seasons are out on Netflix right now, along with Breaking Bad. So if you've never seen like either one of those, definitely go check those out. I've never seen Outer Banks, but I do know that it gets like some great reviews, right? Like it's pretty well received, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, you hear a lot of talk when a new season drops.
Yeah,
So yeah, I would say I don't know where it ranks as far as I know when it first drops, it's usually always in Netflix's top 10.
yeah,
Now where it ranks all time, I'm not sure as far as Netflix goes.
yeah. And well, it's kind of the same as this show. This show, I think it's still. I think Better Call Saul is still in the top 10 as of right now. And normally, like even just Breaking Bad itself is usually hangs out somewhere in like the top played or the fan favorite section of Netflix. Yeah, and I don't know. Have you ever seen? I don't think you have. I think we've talked about that before. You've never seen Breaking Bad, correct?
I have not. I remember a number of years ago,
Hmm.
I think my son started watching it, and I ended up, I'd heard all the buzz and stuff about it, so I was kind of familiar with it, just never watched it.
Yeah.
And I sat down and watched like the first episode, and I was like, wow, that's pretty good. I understood why it was so popular and addictive, but I never picked it up from there.
Man, if you like the first episode and you like that one, you will really get sucked in if you start watching it from there because even people that I've gotten hooked on the show, like that love it, even some of them have, been uninterested after the first episode. They're like, "Oh, like this is kind of slow. This is not what I was thinking it was." And I'm like, just keep watching it, give it a few more episodes. Because it's definitely a slow burn, but man, once it catches fire, it is blazing. Same for Better Call Saul. It's great. It's great. Which is like Better Call Saul is basically like the prequel to Breaking Bad. So it kind of goes in like before the series and events of Breaking Bad, and even kind of after it a little bit, kind of fills in the gaps of like things that happen. It's pretty great. Love it. Love it.
Sweet.
Yeah. So Jeff, Furious 7. I know you're not have you ever seen, I think you told me you haven't seen very many of the Fast and Furious films, right?
Oh,
Like
I
you
want to say I made it through maybe the fourth one.
Mhm.
Which one was Tokyo Drift? Was that the
Third
third
one, that
one?
was the third one, yeah.
Okay, so I think I made it through the fourth one.
Mhm.
Didn't The Rock come in at 5?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty sure I made it through 4 because I knew The Rock had come in at some
Mhm.
point, but this was the first one I saw with his character in it. So and this is one of the franchises that this franchise to me has been a little weird because I remember it being a little popular at the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, I think it lost steam maybe around Tokyo Drift because it kind of went a different direction.
Yeah.
Um, but then this franchise really started to pick up steam to where I feel like the last 4 or 5 or 6 have been far more popular than the initial probably 3.
Yeah.
But you don't see that very often. Usually that first 3 is like what it's all about. But this one, I
Mhm.
mean, gosh, they've added The Rock, Jason Statham. They did a spinoff on Rock's character. So this one, and I knew, well, I won't say I knew. Once I realized which one Furious 7 was,
Mhm.
um, as most people will know, this is the one that Paul Walker unfortunately passed away during the filming of this one.
Mhm.
So I knew this particular one was pretty popular. Although I didn't realize is how well it did.
Yeah.
Just from a number standpoint, it was the first film in the series to reach $1 billion at the box office. It was the second highest grossing motion picture ever released by Universal Pictures. It had a worldwide opening weekend of $384 million, which is actually more than what the original Fast and Furious made in its entire run. Like $180 million more than the entire run of the first one. So kind of going back to where I'm like, this one's actually picked up steam since
Oh, for sure.
it actually surpassed Avatar, not in total gross, but as the fastest movie to gross over $1 billion. And actually, not long after it was released, at the time, it was the fourth highest grossing film of all time. Although I did double check. Currently, there's been a lot of really good movies evidently since then. Currently, it's at number 11,
Okay.
which is still pretty astounding.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of Marvel movies since then too. So like,
Oh, yeah,
yeah, that's
true.
probably where majority of that comes through, and then the second Avatar, and not to mention all the like Sonics and the Mario Brothers movies and
Oh, yeah. Um,
Minions, the Pixars of the universe.
actually, I think the Minions, it's somewhere in the top 30 or 40, and so is the latest Mario Brothers. But
Mhm.
it's
Well, that's crazy
actually,
because that hasn't been out that long.
yeah, I mean,
That's
and
gonna
it's
get up.
weird
That's gonna get up
because,
there. That one's gonna get up there, I bet, because it's such a worldwide phenomenon that hits so many age ranges. Like it hits everybody from like your age that
yeah,
play that shit in the 80s, and it goes all the way like through mine, all the way down to kids that are like 5 and 6. Like that's theirs. That's Mario's still their jam.
and the weird thing is like even after 2 weeks of that movie being out, I don't know. I just assumed it wasn't doing well because most of what I read was that, and granted, that could be. I know sometimes there's a big difference between how the critics feel and how the general audience feels,
Yeah.
which audience is what drives the numbers. But
Hmm.
so I just assumed it wasn't doing well because it was getting trashed by the critics, and you know, Jack Black was the only one that even attempted to do a voice for the character. Everybody else just used their, it was just one thing after another. But then when I saw, I'm like, holy crap, this movie is tearing it up with the box office numbers.
Yeah,
Uh,
I actually went and saw that. I think I was telling you that's actually when I finally went and watched Scream 6. That was I watched a double
mm,
feature, and that was the movie that I watched with the Scream. So yeah, I watched that one in 4DX. Loved it, man. It was great. Loved it. It was such I had so much fun.
oh yeah. All right, so we just chased that rabbit. So we'll get back on what is it we're doing? Furious 7.
Yeah.
uh, so it was actually the first film in the franchise to earn a Golden Globe nomination. Any idea what it would have been for?
Best song?
Yes. See
Yeah.
You Again by Charlie Puth. And how you say Wiz's last name?
Khalifa.
Billy. Okay, that's what I was thinking. It also won Movie of the Year for the People's Choice Awards. And as I mentioned earlier, it was the highest grossing film, pretty much by far, in the series. Now, of course, as I kind of alluded to earlier, a lot of the hype and stuff, maybe hype's not the right word, but the attention and stuff was obviously because of the tragic death of Paul Walker, who was killed in a car crash on November 2013. Shooting had actually been still underway in Atlanta, and the film was originally scheduled to be released that following July 2014. Director James Wan and several Universal executives held a conference call. They were trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to proceed with this as far as being respectful to Walker's memory, because he was nearly halfway through filming at the time of his death. There was obviously some consideration of just scrapping the film altogether, but ultimately they decided to resume production. Of course, they had to do some rewrites to address Walker's absence and give his character a proper send-off. So because of all those challenges, there was body doubles, stunt doubles, archive footage were used to complete the film. Following his death, his brothers Caleb Walker and
Mhm.
Cody Walker were also among the doubles, and
I
also
do remember
provided.
hearing that, like when he passed away, that they were using his brothers. That was like the main thing that I remember.
Oh yeah,
Besides the song, about the whole him passing and everything like that. Out of all of that, that was like the one thing that I do remember was like they used his brothers to like film some of his roles, and I always
yeah.
thought
When
that
I
was
read
funny.
that, yeah, I kind of remember that too. When I read that, I was like, okay, I do remember because as you mean, there was a lot of attention given to how they handled that. And it's a couple of interesting thing is some of his dialogue and footage was actually taken from previous Fast and Furious films.
Hmm.
For example, Brian's conversation with Mia in the Dominican Republic garage is actually a deleted scene from Fast Five.
What?
So they were able to, I guess,
Yeah.
somehow still fit the story in Furious Seven,
Huh.
and also the plane conversation between Dom and Brian has every shot of Walker rotoscope from the conversation with Dom about their fathers from the same film. So there's a couple of things they kind of had to move around to make it work. Um, is it Jordana or Jordana?
I've honestly heard both, so
Okay,
I'm not gonna fault you for either.
I
But
kind of like.
I think I heard Jordana most.
Okay, I was getting ready to say I think I like Jordana best just because it has more of a flow. But
But
uh,
you do you, baby.
Miss Brewster, who played Mia, uh, she had a really tough time because she had to shoot her scenes at the very end of filming because of her lead role on, at the time, the show Dallas television series. So obviously it was very difficult for her, given that most of her scenes were with Paul Walker's character,
Yeah.
which is her on-screen husband, Brian. And by the time her scenes were filmed, obviously Paul Walker already passed away. So she had to either perform scenes with one of Paul's brothers, acting as a body double, or computer graphics or footage from an earlier film. So that's kind of the way the whole situation was handled as far as Paul Walker. Now, some of the other items on this movie, over 230 cars were destroyed during the filming of this movie. And
That's
one of
it.
the reasons I was actually thinking that was kind of a low number too. Uh, Maybe a few buildings. So some other big names that were in consideration. Denzel Washington actually turned down a role in this film. That's a shame. I would have loved to see him.
I bet he would have been the terrorist.
Yeah, very possible. I'm trying to think if it didn't specifically state, not unless it was for Kurt Russell's role.
It could have been Kurt Russell's role as well. Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody would have been a good one too.
Now, a couple Taylor Lautner, interesting, and Halle Berry were also considered for that role that Kurt Russell was cast for. So obviously, this very popular song "See You Again" was dedicated to Paul Walker. Paul Walker. It received I can't talk tonight. It received 1 billion views on YouTube in 2015. And as of 2017, went on to become the most viewed video on YouTube at almost 2.9 billion views. Now, it has since been surpassed, but as of June 2021, the video had more than 5.1 billion views.
Dang.
So, yeah. So, Mr.
When you said 1 billion earlier, you totally made me think of Dr. Evil from Austin Powers.
Yeah, that's kind of what was going through my mind when I saw that billion. So, Mr. Rock, the majority of his stunts were actually performed by, and I'm going to butcher this name,
as always,
Tanoa Reed, which served as his body double, which also happens to be his cousin.
Oh, cool.
Now, Jason Statham was originally offered the lead antagonist role of Owen Shaw, which would have been in Fast and Furious 6, which ended up being played by Luke Evans. But due to commitments of his movies, ironically, the movie Parker in 2013 and Wild Card, he could not take part. But Statham and Vin Diesel have been wanting to work together for a while, so Diesel, in his producing capacity, introduced him a cameo at the end of Fast and Furious 6 and had him penciled in as Deckard Shaw, which ended up being Owen's brother for this film. I love me some Jason Statham.
Yeah, he's great. What was your first Jason Statham? What was your first Jason Statham like introduction?
I have no idea, man. He's been in so many. I'd have to see a chronological order of his movies to see which one jumped out first.
I think I saw him in some Guy Ritchie film maybe for the first time, but the first time I actually realized who he was and was like, oh, that guy is a movie star. Jason Statham, knew his name, recognized him with a bald head. That's the guy. Was Taken. 100%. It was Taken. No, not Taken. Shit. What am I thinking of? The Driver movies. Or he's the freaking driver.
I was just getting ready to say
Transporter, yes.
That I was just getting ready to say when I was thinking about that might have been the first one I can remember.
100%. The Transporter films were absolutely the ones where I was like, where he came to the forefront, and I was like, yeah. But yeah, I was actually a pretty big Fast and the Furious fan. Actually, after this one, I think is where I kind of have fallen off, and I don't know if I've seen any since this one.
Yeah, I was kind of late to the game.
I don't even think I've seen Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah, I know I haven't. Yeah, I was kind of late to the game, and then I did go back, and like I said, I watched the first 4 because there was a guy I was working with who kept. It's like, man, he just absolutely loved that franchise. It's like, man, you got to go back and watch them. And it's like I said, I made it up to 4, but it's another one of those franchises that, they're pumping out new ones like every year, every other year.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to see the new one, but I'm like, crap, I'd have to go back and watch this one or these 2 or these 3 or these 4.
Kind of like Marvel, yeah.
Yeah, just at a certain point, I just give up and and I did give Parker a little bit of a hard time. But I was like, man, we're doing Furious 7. It's like, how important is it to watch, to be caught up on these? It's like, it'll be fine. It'll stand on its own. And maybe to a degree it does, but it definitely helps if you saw the first 6. Not even necessarily. I mean, it does help some as far as understanding what's happening, but I think it would give you a deeper appreciation for the characters. And
I think that's more of what it is. I think you can follow the storyline if you pay enough attention to and you can pick up on what has happened, you can kind of piece together what's happened before the film. But I think, yeah, I think it resonates a lot more knowing and loving the characters, and even, the antagonist, like how you knowing both sides of everything, it just and how it works is just, it does make it a whole lot better.
Yeah. I mean, I was just a little bit lost just because, I mean, it was the introduction or slight, mostly as far as Deckard Shaw. I think it said he was introduced maybe at the end of the sixth one. So I was still trying to figure out, who is this guy? I mean, what?
Yeah.
Obviously, something happened with his brothers. I was like, and then of course, this is the first time I'm seeing Rock in the franchise, but it's
Yeah.
his third movie. So I'm like, all right, who is this guy? What is his character? And plus, what hurt me too is it had been so many years since I saw like the first four. I didn't remember a lot about those either. So I felt like
Oh,
my brain was having to really play catch up and trying to piece some of the stuff together. But
yeah.
just a couple more tidbits that still interesting tidbits. The of course at the end of the movie, Brian drives kind of like off into the sunset. He's driving a Toyota Supra,
Hmm.
which actually did belong to Paul Walker, and it was also the same car reference to the first film where
Yeah.
he also drove that same type of car. Of course, we see Rock a little bit during his recovery in the hospital. One of the scenes you can see he's watching a college football game, which happens to be the University of Miami, and the commentators reference number 94, which is actually Dwayne
Him.
Johnson's
Yep.
jersey.
Yeah.
He played for Miami when he was in college and had a promising NFL career, but his backup plan, I would say, worked pretty well.
Yeah.
I wish I had a backup plan that good.
Right. I mean, well, he did come from like royalty, so I mean, he was all right. He had nepotism on his side.
Yeah. All right, so the final scene where Paul Walker's car kind of veers off the main road onto a ramp is very reminiscent of what they call as a missing man formation formed by military pilots when
Mhm.
they have lost a comrade. So for anybody that's like a fan of this franchise, I think most people would agree that um, the whole sequence, I guess, as far as how they pay tribute was really well done.
Yeah.
They obviously you can tell they put a lot of time and effort on how to best handle that difficult situation. And even the final scene with Dom and Brian is kind of a throwback to the first film, where Dom raced his Dodge Charger against Brian's, as we mentioned, his Toyota Supra, which was the car he drove in the first one as well. So yeah, a lot going on in this movie as far as just introducing new characters, new actors, and just dealing with Paul Walker's character. One thing I wasn't sure about was I felt myself very similar to when I went into, I forget which season it was, and I've been season 4 of Riverdale,
Mhm.
when I went into it knowing that Luke Perry had passed away.
Yeah.
Um, so a good bit of the season, or at least for the first few episodes, was going to be centered around that, and I went into it knowing that. So this was a very similar situation when I went into it knowing. But the thing that I did not realize is I assumed that his character was going to be killed off,
Yeah.
which ended up not being the case at all. So I even had to, since I haven't seen anything past the seventh one, I was just curious, like, well, is he killed off at the beginning of like the eighth one, or it's like, no, it's just his
He
character's
just
still
retired.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
which is kind of beautiful, honestly. Like, I like that approach. It's kind of like this Paul Walker spirit, I guess, like in some corny
yeah,
way, it just kind of like lives on through the character in like this universe. Which is like a nice thought for probably like his family to have, like Brian's out there living, like enjoying
yeah.
his family, living and watching his kids grow up. And
And unfortunately, I'm sure that was one of the difficult decisions they had to make, and that was probably one of the main ones. It's like, all right, do we incorporate that into the movie to where his character passes away, or and obviously we know which direction they went. So that was interesting to me because I just went into it under that assumption and was like, hey, his character lives on, which was pretty cool.
yeah.
All right, brother, I'm gonna pass it on to you and see how well your little schoolboy recap is going to go on this one.
All right. For those of y'all that are listening for the first time, this is where I will recap the movie using nothing but my ADHD brain. And Jeff will grade me at the end of it on a scale of A plus being the best to an F being I'm pretty sure that you were watching Cars and not Fast Seven. Um
A lot of
so yeah,
similarities, obviously, but
very, very close. Um I don't remember Mater being in this one, but I think I don't know. Rock could be Mater. Rock could be Mater in this one, or maybe no,
ludicrous.
no, not even Ludacris. Crap, Tyrese. Tyrese would definitely be Mater.
There you go.
Definitely. Um, yeah. So we're gonna start this out. I'm going to try to. This is probably going to be a huge mix of character names versus actor names because I do know a lot of the character names, but I also don't know some of the character names. But at the same time, even the characters' names that I do know are very famous people. So I will probably also be referring to them as both. So just preface the recap with that. So we start out and um we've got Dom, played by Vin Diesel, him and Michelle Rodriguez. They're kind of just talking. Michelle Rodriguez, she's been she can't really remember anything. Dom's just trying to, help her, remember things. We cut to Paul Walker. He's, married to Jordana Brewster. They got a son. They're, living the domesticated life. Um, and then we cut to Decker, played by Jason Statham. He is visiting his brother in a coma, which was he's been put in a coma by Rock and Vin Diesel and their crew in the previous film. So Decker's heated about this, so he wants revenge. He um
And that's part of where I was getting a little confused at because I'm
yeah.
like, why did the dude destroy the entire hospital? And like, I didn't understand what was going on there. And I was like, but as the film progressed, it kind of made more sense. But
Yeah, like even because it has been a while since I've watched the like all of them in all honesty, so I was kind of like trying to place like where this one was in my head. And so yeah, I was like, what is going on? So like even somebody that has seen these before, it did take me a few seconds. Probably not quite as long as you to catch up with like where I was at and what was going on. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It was one of the Shaws that it was Owen that yeah. But anyways,
yeah,
so
but
Jason.
like even sorry to interrupt you again. I'm gonna make it as hard as possible, but so but yeah, like even like Jordana Brewster's character, I'm like, why is she so close to Dom? I'm like, that's a
Mhm.
little weird. And I was like, it's like, dude, that's Paul's woman. But then I was like, oh wait, they're siblings. And so it's like it's been forever since I even
Yeah,
watched the first four. So I had to kind of get reacquainted with the characters and what their relationships and stuff were to each other.
fair
So
enough, fair enough. Um, so Jason Statham, he decides that he is going to get revenge on Rock and Vin Diesel and the crew. So starts out by going to the Rock, who is, he's this police officer slash special. I don't know exactly what he is, a detective. And he breaks into the Rock's office, steals some information on who helped him, and then he gets in a fight with the Rock. He lets off a grenade, blows it. It blows the Rock and his partner or friend. I'm not really sure exactly which one, or if they're just like colleagues or what. Blows them out of the window, and Jason Statham escapes. We cut back to Paul Walker and Vin Diesel and Jordana Brewster. They're just like hanging out at Dom's house, and I think it's Dom's house. They have a package on the porch, and oh wait, I forgot. Before Jason Statham goes to The Rock, he goes to Tokyo, Japan. No, wait. wait a second. This is where it happens. So Jason Statham goes to Japan, and after he goes and takes care of the Rock, that's right, because that's how he knows it was Han. He goes after he gets the information from the Rock. Jason Statham goes to Japan, and he causes Han to have a car wreck and kills him. And cut back. Then we cut back to Vin Diesel's house where he has a package on the box, package on the porch from Japan. That's when he gets a phone call saying, like from Shaw saying that he should, be careful, blah blah blah, and that he's coming for him and he's wanting revenge, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when he realizes that the package on the Porsche is a bomb. It blows up. Since Paul Walker flying into the van, which that was crazy. That was a crazy scene when Paul Walker shuts the door, on the kid, and then like right when he shuts it, the explosion throws him up against the glass. Like that was intense. That was a pretty cool explosion. I got to say, that's one of my top 10 explosions in films I think that I've ever seen. I really did appreciate.
And it's cool because it to me it kind of played into like Brian's struggle, wanting to be the domesticated family man to his passion, which is seeing more bullets for some reason.
Yeah.
But his first instinct was protect his child.
Yeah.
That's why he shut the door so quick, because he knew that was going to protect his son. So, but yeah, that was a pretty intense scene.
Yeah, and like you said, like it really shows like even though it's really like what Jordana is like struggling with the whole time, like it really shows that that's where what Brian actually really wants, like at the end of the day. Which is really sweet, and it's kind of just like a really kind of nice foreshadowing of kind of how the movie winds up ending. Which like I really wondered like if this was actually part of the storyline to begin with, or if they just wrote it in, after the fact, because I don't know, it just seems like it's so perfect the way that they wrote it. And like, I know a lot of her scenes had to be filmed, but like afterwards, but I don't know, man, whatever they did a really good job, because I was trying to watch this film, like picking it out, because I knew that he wasn't around for a lot of it, and I could not tell, man. I couldn't tell. They did a great job.
Oh yeah.
So I'm interrupting myself here, making it harder on myself. So, Dom, he decides to go to Tokyo to retrieve the body of Han and bring him back to the United States. While he's over there, he meets up with Lucas Black's character and Lil Bow Wow's character, who is from Tokyo Drift. I love the way these movies like wind up tying all these movies together as well. It's just great. And so, that's when Lucas kind of, Lucas Black's character gives Dom the necklace that was found with Han. And, this is like getting real emotional for Dom. So he goes back and he decides to find Shaw while they're at the funeral. They're out there, the whole gang's there. They're at Han's funeral. Vin Diesel spots Shaw in the car at the funeral, so he decides to take off after him. He chases him down to this, I don't know what that place was. It was like some kind of like factory slash, I don't know. It was like a tunnel turned into a factory. I don't know what that place was. Anyways, they wind up, playing chicken, and they actually run into each other, which I was not expecting, dude. That was, it's always great. I don't know. That's one thing I do love about, like not watching. If I watch a movie a lot, I can memorize it like front to back. But if I don't watch a movie for a long time, I will forget things. If I've only seen it once, totally forgot a bunch of this movie, and that was one of the scenes that I forgot, was them actually running into each other. Super great. He said it was like, what do you say? He said that was cheating. It's like going to a boxing match with loaded gloves, which was a very apt analogy, I thought. So, they're sitting there fighting, and then all of a sudden they get busted in by a bunch of special ops forces. Um, Shaw gets away, and that's when we realize, like, that's when Kurt Russell makes his appearance as Mr. Nobody. He kind of makes Dom an offer here where he's like, hey, um, there's this program that this hacker has, put out there called God's Eye. You can pretty much see anybody in the world using any camera in the world, and you can find them, trace them, find them within like 2 or 3 minutes. This hacker name is Ramses that wrote this program. He wants Dom and the crew to go and get it from this terrorist organization who has captured Ramsey and keeping her hostage until they get the program. So they go and they create this convoluted plan to take cars and airdrop them onto this, really hard to this mountain that's really hard to get access to. They try to surprise them by giving them a drop, and it surprisingly works. um, and they get there, they retrieve Ramsey. They That's when Ramses lets them know that, I sent God's Eye. I sent it to my friend to protect it, and this friend is a prince. So no, wait, the friend is not a prince. The friend put the car or put um the program in a car, like hid it in a car, and so or well, Ramses put it in the car, and the friend sold the car to a prince, and so they have to break into the tower to steal.
It's like, did she not explain well enough to her friend how important this was that he just casually, oh yeah, I sold it or I gave it to somebody else? I'm like, what?
So so they break into the tower, ruin this party. They steal a car. Dude, this is another cool scene where they're driving from building to building. Love that. They get the eye of God. They take it back to Mr. Nobody, who helps them find Shaw. They locate him and they track him to this abandoned warehouse. They get there, and that's when they are ambushed by the terrorist group that had Ramsey, and um, then they escape. Mr. Nobody gets shot, and they let him go on his own, and he kind of disappears from the situation there. They get back out, and the terrorists have taken over God's Eye, so they have it, and they make a plan to steal it back so that they can relocate Shaw. They get into the city where the terrorists have God's Eye, and they're trying to hack into the system. Ramses knows the way to do this. They just have to stay within 2 miles of the terrorists at all times. They're really close to hacking in when the terrorists realize what's going on. They blow up the tower, and this causes them to not be able to hack in. They're pretty close, but not quite. And then Paul Walker, flips on the backup tower, and they are able to take over God's Eye again. And they locate Shaw, and him and Dom wind up getting into a fist fight, which like with like some weapon or what, I don't even know what they had. They just had like bars, like rebar. And then the I can't remember the terrorist name. He comes in and he starts shooting at both of them. And then that's when Dom, drives the car into the helicopter and throws a bag of grenades on there. Shaw, shoots the grenades, blows up the helicopter, kills both of them. And then Dom's, in this pile of rubble after he has his car wreck. Brian and Michelle Rodriguez goes over to him, and Shaw, and they all help him out of the car, pull him to safety. Um, Michelle's sitting there holding him. Everybody's, upset. Michelle Rodriguez, as she's holding him, remembers all the memories come flooding back, and she remembers that they were married. She tells him this, and as she's telling him this, he wakes up, regains consciousness, and everybody's happy. Um, the Rock arrests Shaw, who's like, "You think these bars are really going to keep me?" Kind of foreshadowing that maybe he's going to get out in the future. Wink, wink. And then we cut to Paul Walker on the beach. Everybody's kind of looking around. All the tertiary characters, the secondary characters that are in the group. The ones I didn't really even mention. Like, well, I mean, we kind of mentioned earlier, but Tyrese, Ludacris, all of our guys there. They are kind of they're all just sitting there watching Paul Walker, and that's when they realize, like, he's done. And then, yeah, and then, like you said, then we had the nice little send off for Paul Walker at the end, where he's retired from the game, and he drives off into the sunset. The end.
Very well done.
Thanks, man.
I'm impressed.
Thanks. I was actually really surprised with myself. I think that extra bit of caffeine that I drank before this podcast helped, because I was actually able to remember most of it. I didn't even have to like stop and be like, "Where was that?" Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, there we go. Furious 7.
So I'm gonna give you a fat solid A.
Awesome, thanks, man.
Because I never give out A pluses because
I appreciate it.
I feel like
if I came out and like recited it word for word, you might give me an A plus then.
I might, but then I'd probably still give you an A because I said that was too robotic. So I'm sorry. No.
You'd be like, I'm pretty sure you're looking at it. Which would be fair and all. I mean, you would be absolutely correct.
You're using your AI version. That just
yeah, dude. So I was going to, and I'm sure everybody that has Snapchat has had some kind of like, for like at this point, like experience with their AI bot that Snapchat has like integrated into everybody. And I was like, I'm gonna have them for this podcast for fun. I'm gonna have them write a recap for the Furious 7 and read it on the air. And they were acting dumb as hell, and like they didn't know what the hell I could do. I'm like, bro, you could even pull something off of Wikipedia. Come on, like you're gonna pretend like you can't watch something because you're a virtual assistant. Get the hell out of here. So if you're listening to this, go check out our Instagram because I posted it there. Yeah. Dumb, so dumb. I was so disappointed. I was like, this is gonna be funny. So the only amount of humor that I actually got out of it is posted to our Instagram. So go check that out there. Jeff, what did you think of? Well, okay, wait. Out of 5 Maseratis, what did you give this movie?
So this was tough because in a lot of ways I felt like I did it a disservice by, I guess, being so disconnected, I guess, from the franchise, just between having not watched like the original 4 in so long, and then having not seen 5 or 6. So like I said, I spent probably more time than just probably anybody else that watched 7 trying to figure out what the heck was going on, who these characters are, why are they interacting this way, type stuff. But I do understand why this particular one, up to this point has been the one that probably is the best, or has done the best, or has been the best received. I can definitely see where fans of the franchise really, really like this movie, and I really did enjoy it too. Like I said, I wish I wouldn't have been as disconnected. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. So based on that, I'm going to give it 3.5 Maseratis. But this is one of those where I would have easily given it a 4 or a 4.5, maybe. I did really enjoy the movie. It's one of those where it's funny that I watched this one when I did because I mentioned I watched Outer Banks, and see, I'm the type of person. To me, it either needs to be typically either a movie that has some kind of supernatural element, which means hey, all rules are off the table. Pretty much anything can happen. So in a lot of ways, if there's no supernatural element, then to me everything needs to be somewhat believable. Um, and like when I watch Outer Banks, it's another one of those where whether it's a show or a movie, sometimes I just have to tell my brain, you know what, look, this is absurd. Just accept it. Just don't worry about it and just
Yeah.
enjoy the ride. So this one, it was absurd in so many ways. So early on, I just had to tell my brain, like, look, don't be bothered by that. Obviously, cars driving off the C-130 and flipping up their parachute, crashing out of one building and landing in another one. It's like, look, it's fine. It's fine. Really, it's fine. But so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that, but as far as like the traditional summertime popcorn blockbuster, I mean, this like checks all the boxes. It's
Yeah.
it pays great tribute to the franchise and obviously to Paul Walker. It's a very entertaining movie. Just a lot going on, a lot of characters. And of course this franchise is known for mixing a lot of good humor and one liners. So they did a lot of things really well. I definitely understand why this movie performed so well and has made over $1 billion. Uh, so yeah, I'm gonna give it 3.5. Like I said, I could have easily given it a 4.5 had I been more kind of connected to the series, but otherwise, I definitely want to go back now and at some point, well, probably just rewatch the whole thing, but definitely
Yeah.
go back and watch 5 and 6. And then there's an 8 and a 9
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. And then 10, I think, is coming out later this month.
So yeah, that would take a while to do all that, but we'll see.
Yeah. It won't take too
Um,
long. I have faith in you. I think you can make it happen.
yeah, we'll see. Your faith is misguided sometimes, but
Oh man, you ain't wrong.
so what were you thinking I was going to give this one?
Um, Actually, I thought you did a little bit better. I thought you were gonna give it a 3.
Okay.
I didn't I didn't really see this being. I thought you would enjoy the humor. Um, I don't know. I don't think. I mean, other than Cobra Kai, we really haven't had too many just straight up action films. So I guess I really didn't know how your response to like an action film would be. I do know
Mhm.
you like enjoy storylines and stuff like that. So uh I was expecting you to give it a 3, honestly. That's about where I was expecting you. So you did give it a little bit better than I thought.
Yeah, I was really close giving it a 4. I really was. So I was kind of going
Yeah.
back and forth between a 3.5 and a 4. But I feel like maybe you might give it a 4. We'll have to see what you say.
4.5 Maseratis.
Wow, big
I
four
like
and a
this
half.
movie. I like this movie a lot. It's so much fun. I this made me like watching it this time. I'm like, why have I dropped off of this series? I am so disappointed in myself that I haven't seen 8 and 9. I'm going to watch those as soon as I can, even if I have to pay for them. I don't care. Yeah, I had so much fun watching this, and honestly, like even this is one of those films. Like when I was watching it, you know, sometimes like sometimes when I'm doing this podcast, I kind of get into like this mindset a little bit that where I'm trying to be like, oh, like I've got to find something wrong with it to, critique on it. Just not necessarily like not necessarily because I'm a jerk or because I want to find something wrong with it, but just more so like because I think when you just sit there and talk about how good something is for, 10 or 15 minutes, it can get kind of boring. And like I don't know, I think just as like society, like sometimes it's just really fun to like rip into things and like kind of tear them apart. But honestly, like fuck that. Like this movie was fun. You know what I mean? And like, not only was it fun, but even in the ways like they could have messed up in the traditional ways that like, like in things that like don't normally matter in action films, that you can just be like, it's an action film, just shrug it off. Um, Most of those things, like when it came to the story, like it was fine. Like everything checked out, everything made sense. Everything was starting to connect with like previous movies. Everything fit into place. Everything made sense. Some of the action scenes, like you were saying, like where they were jumping from building to building with a car, parachuting out of a freaking uh um freaking freight plane. Like these things, like if you can just suspend a disbelief in that, like that this is a different universe where, physics need not apply, um, then yeah, like everything else checks out, like it makes sense. It's from a storyline point of view, from like the way like real humans would, interact as far as a lot of the emotions go. Yeah, it's great. It's so much fun. So much fun, especially if you're a big fan of action movies. Like even this one's got all the great stuff. Everything looks beautiful. The stunts are well performed. This everything that's funny just kind of hit for me. Yeah. Yeah, man. 4.5 Maseratis. This has been one of my favorite. And I'm not even a Fast and the Furious is probably the only. I'm not a big car guy. I'm really not. Like I enjoy them just fine, but as far as like when it comes to like being obsessed with them, or like even being able to be like look at a car and tell you the make, model, and year, never been that kind of guy. Appreciate them very much, but not like obsessed by any means. But
Yeah, and that's the main reason I was late jumping on this franchise, was because I just what little bit I knew, I thought you had to be a car person or a car enthusiast.
yeah,
But no, like I said, this guy I knew, he's like, dude, nah, he said, yeah, it helps, but he said, it's definitely not needed.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, that's why I was a little late, because I'm in the same boat as you. It's like, I mean, cars are cool and all, and
yeah.
I don't mind going to a car show just because I think they look neat, but
Hmm.
I'm not going to spout out all these facts about them or
Yeah, I
anything
mean,
like that.
well, honestly, probably what did it for me was like when this film like series started, which was probably I would want to say like 2000, 2001 maybe. I was in my early teens, so like this hit in probably the maybe like the 5-year span of where I was mildly obsessed with cars, because I was about to drive, like the few years before I was about to drive, and then the few years after I was about to drive, before after I learned how to drive and started driving, before I actually became an adult and realized that it was going to take a lot of money to be able to even pretend to want to buy one of these cars. Um, yeah, and once I realized that I would never obtain one, I didn't want to live in a world where I was obsessing over something that I could never obtain. So yeah, I just kind of faded off from that world. But yeah, whenever this came out, like it probably was like right at the start of me being like, I like cars. I can't wait to drive cars. I want a cool car. And then this movie came out. So yeah. Um yeah. Yeah. Loved it. 4.5. So that gives us, you got a 3.5, I got a 4.5. That gives us an average of 4 for the first film in our car series. Yeah, dude, this is starting out pretty good. I actually kind of surprised myself with this one, even though this was my pick, and it's probably been close to 10 years at this point since I've seen this movie. So it was even better than I remember it, which doesn't happen very often on the movies that we watch, um, that we've had previously watched. Usually I don't end up liking it more. So yeah, Jeff, yeah, who is your dude or dud of the week this week?
All right, I'm going to give it a dude, and I'm going to go with Kurt Russell's character.
Oh, dude, damn you. Okay, I've got to come
What?
up with a different one. Go ahead. Go ahead.
uh,
If your reason is different than mine, I will keep it. I'll keep mine. But go ahead.
it might be. We'll see. So no, obviously this was my first time watching the movie. I was, you said you'd watched it like I guess when it came out. So I had no clue when Kurt Russell's character was introduced. Like I had no like, what's this guy? What's his motive?
Yeah.
I was for sure convinced he was going to turn
Yep. You got the
on.
exact same reason. You
Oh
got the exact same
yeah.
reason. Okay,
So
go ahead.
I was
Love it.
like, I was just shocked when that's not what happened. It's almost like the movie was pushing you
Yeah.
that direction to make you and trying to get you to think that direction, and then just you
Yeah.
know, in most cases it would be obvious that's
Yeah,
the
it's like they
direction to
played they
go.
played on the trope. They played on the trope of like this guy's gonna turn. This guy, when's he gonna
Yeah.
turn?
And so I was like so happy and proud that he didn't, that
Hmm.
he was actually legit, and he was on their side, uh and he did everything he said he was going to do. He held up his end. So I was like, man, kudos old Kurt Russell in that situation. So I do apologize. I stole your pick though.
Dude, I mean, it was great, man. It was great. I love it. I mean, like, I love it that we were literally had the exact same idea for the exact same reason. That has never happened. That is the first. That is the podcast first, and I am here for it because that tripped me out. I was like, oh man, this is a good one too. So I'm proud of you for coming up with that one because I was proud of myself. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Um,
It's like we always have some kind of first on our podcast here.
so my
So
dud of the week this week is going to be Jeff for stealing my damn idea.
there you go.
No. um,
I've been called worse.
no, my dude. Okay, so I'm going to switch it up. So my dude of the week is going to be Vin Diesel, actually. Because I know he's had a lot to do with the comeback of the series. He wasn't in the second one. I think he might have had a cameo in the third one, but at that point, that's when they had or maybe not. I can't remember exactly the timeline of how it goes, but I do know he was not in the second or third one in the actual film. And I think part of the condition of him returning to the franchise was that he had a say in what was going to happen. And normally when that occurs, it's not good for the film. It's usually like, oh man, it goes downhill from here, blah blah blah. Like you can tell that it was like, oh man, what was once a good original idea of a franchise? Like the star came in and made it their driven picture, which I mean he still does, but at the same time he's done it so well. And I don't know if you know this about Vin Diesel, but he's kind of like a big nerd. Like dude plays like Dungeons and Dragons, and
Oh,
he's like,
okay.
yeah, like he's had like this campaign that's been going on for like years and years and years with like his friends, which is really cool. So like he really knows how to. I don't know if he wrote the film or he's responsible for anything, but I do know that he's like responsible for like kind of like outlining it, I guess, and like where he wants it to go. And
Yeah,
so yeah,
starting
he's
starting
doing
with
great with it.
the fourth one, he's also served as one of the producers.
Okay, so yeah, that's what it is then. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so like I mean he's had a big part of like why this franchise has turned around and became extremely successful, man. And
So it's
I
Paul Walker. Why can I not say Walker tonight? Oh my gosh, Walker.
Paul
So
Walker.
is he the only one that's actually been consistent and been in every single one?
Paul Walker was not in the third one.
Okay, not in the third one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like that's why the third one got such bad reviews at the time was because it was the only one that at the time didn't make sense because it wasn't really like a sequel. Um
So it was like Halloween 3.
yeah, so it was kind of, but if like in the seventh Halloween film, it was like the Silver Shamrock Company came back and you were like, oh, that's why the Silver Shamrock Company was in the third one. Like now it comes back around. Basically the same thing. Yeah, because like Lucas Black and Little Bow Wow, like they were only in the third one. And Han, the character that died in the seventh one, he was the only character that was crossed over. And I don't even think he was in the first two. I think they brought him back in the fifth or sixth one. And then that's how they tied him back to the Tokyo, because the third film, like, okay, so the first and second one had to do with Paul Walker, and the first one was him and, Vin Diesel doing their thing, him trying to infiltrate Vin Diesel's crew, and then they become friends. And then the next one was Paul Walker teaming up with Tyrese to infiltrate another thing, because him and Tyrese were friends in high school. And then the third one just dropped off like all that storyline, and it just took Lucas Black, who was this kid who raced cars and was like drifting. He was here in the United States, and then he got in a car wreck, and he had to go and live with his mom or dad. I can't remember exactly, who lived in Tokyo. And when he moved over there, that's when he got into the drifting scene and met Little Bow Wow. And yeah, that whole movie right there didn't have anything to do with the first two until Han showed up, because Han was one of the characters in the third one. So yeah. Yeah, how they tied it all back around. Love it. So yeah. You got any rando questions for us this week, Jeff?
I do actually, but not so random this week. So do you remember like your
21st
first
night of September?
Yeah, your first car, and like any
Yeah.
specific memories or
So
details?
so I had the first car that was actually like considered mine was a 1995 red Ford Ranger. My great grandfather gave it to me because he was getting too old to drive, and he wanted to stay in the family, and uh just luck of the draw, nothing else. Like, I do not pretend to be like a favorite grandchild or anything like that. I just happened to be the one that was turning 16 when he decided that he was no longer able to drive, and luck have it that, yeah, I was the one out of all the grandkids. So I got the truck and wound up passing that down to my sister, and I think my dad still has it to this day. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's been great. Yeah, and for some reason, I don't know if it was because, I mean, it has to be because it was my first truck or whatever, but I can't tell you how many times I had to pop the back glass because I locked my damn keys in the truck. Like, I have not had that problem, knock on wood, with almost any other vehicle. I think I've done it like maybe once or twice since then, have locked my keys in my car. Yeah, outside of that, I did it in that truck probably 15 times over the course of like 2 years. Yeah, so that's definitely my main memory of that truck, was like how many times. And not that, and because it had a tape deck and it didn't have a CD player, and for some reason, like, how you had the portable CD players at the time, and you could buy like the tape adapter that you could like push into the cassette tape.
Yeah.
So for some reason, I could never get one to work in that truck. So I actually would like buy cassette tapes, because you could still do this at the time. Holy hell, I'm speaking my age right now. You could still buy cassette tapes at the time that, and so like I had the next episode, or not the next episode, Dr. Dre, The Chronic 2001. I had that. I had like a couple of tapes that I can remember. And then the ones that where I couldn't buy the cassette tapes, I would go and do the old school way of like making mixtapes, in my room with a CD player and a blank cassette tape. And yeah, that's how I lived my life for a good 2 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up like the mixtape thing, because when I was usually when I cut grass, I usually throw on my headphones and either listen to a podcast, listen to some music, or whatnot. And so this most recent time, I was like, I want to listen to some music. So, I kick on my Spotify. But then I guess about that time, Steph must have got home, and we got Spotify as our default through our Alexa, our Echo Dot. So she obviously must have told her to start playing music because mine suddenly quit. And I guess started playing whatever she was listening to. So I was like, well, dang, I didn't want to mess up what she was listening to inside the house. It's like, I'm just going to switch over to like my old iTunes songs that I had still downloaded on my on my phone. And of course, I guess that's like today's finding an old mixtape is like, oh man, look at my old iTunes songs.
Dude, I still have my old iPod.
Playlist. Oh, there you go. So now granted, these were probably only 3-4 years old, but still it was a lot of songs and a playlist I haven't listened to in a few years.
That's so cool.
It's actually kind of nice to go back and listen. So that's what I did when I cut grass this last time. But
awesome.
But yeah, as far as me, man, my first car, it's a 1984 Pontiac T1000.
Okay.
Now that may sound sporty, but it was basically the very close cousin of the Chevette. They were basically identical vehicles. I think it was a friend of mine. His mom was getting rid of their car or something. I mean, it costed like $600. So it's definitely not the type of first vehicle that like you bust up into school, like, oh yeah, man, people are gonna love me now. No, it was definitely a point A to point B type vehicle, but still fond memories, obviously, because it was my first, and of course, it was all about playing music, when you first get your car and stuff. So it may have lasted me a year or two before it kind of died out on me, but I remember when the Ice Baby got real popular. Me and a friend of mine, we would just make up our own songs. I even remember a line we made up in my old beat up T1000. Like cruising in my T1 triple O with a hole in the top so our hair can blow. I mean, it was just so dumb. So anyway,
that's awesome.
How I still remember that, and I can't remember what I ate yesterday. That's the sign of aging when you remember those little tidbits, but not the simple stuff.
Love it. I love it, man. That's great.
T1 triple O.
All right, Jeff. So Jeff, next week is your pick. What is your pick for what are we gonna be watching next week?
All right. So one of the biggest, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, man, there's one big difference, mostly in Parker's picks and my picks. Do you know what that one? Now I'm sure there's other differences, but for some reason this one just kind of stuck out to me here recently. I was like, Parker's picks are usually movies that he's seen, mainly because you've watched a lot more movies than me, so it's a little bit harder for you to pick ones that fit our theme that you haven't seen. So I'm usually picking ones I haven't seen because there's a lot of movies I haven't seen, and since I don't watch a lot of movies, I definitely, as I've mentioned before, I don't rewatch hardly any. I really try to pick ones that I haven't seen, and I can't remember if you told me you had seen this one or not. But I actually heard a coworker talking about this movie recently, even before we picked, or that you picked the theme for this month. It's called Ford versus Ferrari, with Matt Damon, Christian Bale, the guy at work. I mean, he said he loved it. So it's funny when you picked this theme. I was like, matter of fact, I think when you told me the theme, I like immediately told you, I already got my pick there.
What's so funny is I was actually telling one of my friends about the theme, and they were like, I think the only car movie I can even think about is Ford versus Ferrari. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what are the chances? And that was after you had told me like about it. So
have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
so yeah.
It'll be fresh for both of us.
Yeah. Cool, man. Awesome. And what's that on? Do you know? Do you remember what that's on?
I want to say dang it. For some reason I'm thinking Amazon, but wait, let me confirm that, cuz
we'll we'll vamp over this right quick. Do do do. So we don't have dead air. Do do do. No dead air. Do 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 do. Damn it, Jeff. Your Google skills got to step up, bro. Just vamping over here. All right.
It is not Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It could be Hulu.
Oh, let's look. Okay. Let's see. Ford v Ferrari is streaming on Hulu. It is on Hulu. You're right. So Ford versus Ferrari, Hulu. Watch that with us if you want to watch it with us. Okay. It is getting late here.
Yeah, I was going to say we're recording later than we normally do. So.
Yes. Okay. It's starting to wear on us. So we will be watching Ford versus Ferrari this coming up week, and we really hope that you guys will watch that with us. Jeff, do you have anything else before we get out of here and take our asses to sleep?
Yeah, it's good to be back. It should be a fun month, off to a great start. So yeah,
it's warming up.
Yes, it is. So everybody enjoy this warmer weather and get out and have a new adventure this coming week.
Yes, let the windows down with a rag top down so your hair can blow.
Yes.
And
find you a T1 triple O.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right. Anything else?
Nothing for me. How about you? What you gonna drop us down with?
Nothing else for me, man. I just want to say thank you so much for doing this with me every week. I really do appreciate it. And also, thanks for working, around schedules. I know sometimes you and I, we have to kind of just freestyle it sometimes on when we do the podcast. So I do appreciate you working around my schedule this week. Just a little behind the scenes. Thank you for everybody else out there. And then everybody else that just had to hear that for no reason. Thank you guys for listening to us every week and for putting up with our shenanigans. We really do appreciate your guys' loyalty, and for you guys listening to us, thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you so much for telling a friend, family, anybody else that really helps out the podcast. It also helps us out by sharing, liking, rating, and leaving us a review, subscribing if you have not. And if you do want to help us out by financially, help us out, give us a few bucks here and there. You can do so by going to our Patreon, which you can find that in the show notes. Links to that and everything else is going to be in the show notes. Yeah, thanks again, and remember, cars don't fly. Peace out. All right. It's good to be back. It was a nice break though.